Okay.
Right? So this is game and build game studio. Same time. Everyone. My name is Ashley Buchay, and I'm a game designer, writer, and programmer for Boba Studio. My name is Kristen, I'm the artist and manager for Boba Studio. Feel free to like raise your hand or
Jules, what are you doing? Like,
Oh, I like making silly cartoon sound effects.
okay, now
As
you're
I
telling me
mentioned
the
before,
best time
first, but I do like dabble into some. I mean, I don't think Zelda is really an RPG; it's more of a puzzle action adventure game. But like, I think I do like exclusively retro stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I collect the old game consoles like my NES here, but I also have a Super Nintendo. I have a Extension. I have played Master Game. The oldest console I have is the original Sears Telegame Atari.
All right, next level. Raise your hand if you want to be a game dev. Yeah. So, I know you said you want to make a platformer. What kind of games do you want to make?
2D at first, slowly gradually get into 3D.
Oh yeah, I should probably I'm a fan of the Prince of Persia 2D like 2D platformer that like heavily utilizes animation.
Yeah.
So have you ever played the Genesis version of Aladdin?
No.
So that game like used like Disney animators worked on the animation of that game, and it's very like a parenting to the game. And also there's Dragon's Lair. Have you ever heard of that game? Have you ever seen Stranger Things? You know, like in the second season, that game Dust was playing. So yeah, that was basically just an interactive movie.
Oh.
And it was actually made by the same guy that did American Tail.
Oh.
Right. It's called Dragon, and I actually have the NES version of that game right here. Now it's nothing obviously.
So, over season, we're kind of looking at the involved program. While the team was formed in place, we established our LLC. So Ashley and I are yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that.
Yes.
Anything?
Say, Jules, are you able to hear?
Yeah, Jules can hear just fine.
At least
And maybe not every single thing, but Jules can hear fine.
I'll bring this a little closer.
Also, did you email me the 4-line file?
Not yet. I guess I could do that. I don't know if that's gonna like change the format later, but I guess that's fine. I can edit it.
And then we have um, whether system games, but we have about 150 games in the six games we like. So, one thing that's like really important too is when you're on a small team, when you're in any team, you wear a lot of hats. And so like that's where kind of Kirsten and I come in as being the leads, that we will pick up anything that in order to put this game out. And so that might be like learning how to do something like learning business. Nobody wants to do that, but like somebody's got to do that, you know? And so, we do a lot of like the catch-all things for both the game development side, like we want something in the game, but nobody knows how to do it, where the student go and figure out how to do it, so we can put it in the game no matter what. Yeah. But I think we this is we kind of break up our role, whether it's development sales or so for the development, I'm the lead art leader, but then the business side will be something that she's pretty involved. I'm kind of in charge of any like the game or you can't go friendly, but you do like all of the work at right. I mean the organization that falls in the and then actually for the game is the designer, writer, and UI designer. And for the so a little bit more about ourselves and like how we got into being, you know, who we became to make video game studio. My name is Ashley Duchay, as I mentioned. I graduated from the Maryland Institute College of Art in 2017 as an interactive arts major with a game arts concentration and a humanistic studies major with a focus on creative writing, which of course you can see directly relates to our game, and art history. So my art experience going into college actually was like not the kind of thing you might expect from a typical game design student, because I didn't actually have any digital experience in art. My like was not for that, so I had a fully traditional background, you know, painting, graphite, charcoal, 35mm camera, digital camera, going and like all like that sort of stuff, that I didn't actually get access to doing digital art until I was in college, but I knew that's like what I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to be. I also have a background in both like creative and academic writing, and that you know, so of course with like storytelling of our game, and then academic writing helped like the side of figuring out how to do like business writing better. And so it's like really interesting, like figuring out all these things that I tried out younger and how that really informs our practice of being able to have our studio. I also grew up playing several instruments too, and so while I don't directly work on the music and sound in our game at this moment, I'm like that helps me be able to communicate with the person who does do that for us, and like being able to get, you know, with an ear that like is you know, adept for those things. And as far as my business experience,
Oh, no worries. Okay. Okay. Yep. We're good.
as far as my business experience goes, actually my only business experience was I went into Micah knowing that I wanted to make a video game business, and so I signed up for work study in the career development office because they also handle entrepreneurship things. And so I really just made myself available to learning everything, to going to all of their events, attending all of the workshops. And while I was like simultaneously I would like get all of the information that I needed to. And so when things like the Upstart Venture was introduced at our school, I was like, I had my ear to the ground directly to figure out like what is it that we needed to learn in order to about that. And so a little bit more of the fun stuff. My first game, I want to say, was either Pokemon Stadium or Super Smash, but honestly, I don't even remember the experience of picking up the controller for the first time. I've been like literally playing games all of my life, and so that's the best like a guess that I can really give. But I do love both of those franchises dearly, but not something that I'm upset to say at all that those are probably my first games.
I think my first game I ever played, it was either Soul Calibur or Namco.
From remember when they put Link in Soul Calibur, and that's actually the only Soul Calibur game I own. When I bought it, so I was like, Link is so pretty, I need that. Do you remember your first game?
But my earliest game was that it was definitely Super Mario. My dad got me a SNES at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
All Stars or was it Mario World?
I don't remember specifically which one. It was just an earlier version made.
Did it have
Not-
Yoshi in it?
No, it was okay. So Mario had the ability to turn into a Tanuki. So
That was Mario 3, so he said it's next, he probably had the All Star collection.
So I knew when I wanted to go to games at that when I was like 7. And it's like I had an older brother who's in the business, and I think that really kind of what got me. And so in that moment, I was like, I want to own a video game studio when I grow up. And so that's kind of like what I've been doing, is figuring out how to do that from that point in my life. My favorite system is, I think I have a Sega Nintendo Switch. This is like pretty steep competition. I have a whole lot of nostalgia for the GameCube. That was the first system that I owned. And so I love it very dearly. And I love the like gimmick of the Nintendo Switch, like the dual screen and the writing and like what you could do that with like detective games and stuff. It was amazing. But I think like one of the things I love about the Switch that is both so easy to play it docked and undocked, of course, is just that they're kind of bringing all of these things back that I love, and now I can have relive all these experiences in my hand, and that means like so much to me because like preserving the history is preserving the art, preserving the fun, and that allows us to like go into these games.
So I called one and I'm not exactly representing it that well, but then my favorite.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm a big fan of Power Stone from the Genesis. Have you ever played it?
No.
It was like this fighting game. It's not exactly a long fighting game, but I got a lot of joy out of it.
It was like Street Fighter 2, like the Street Fighter style.
Kind of. I mean, like it can be like kind of with the platforms like what is a good example? Like pretty much you can run around, smash stuff. You get 3 gems, you get like a super from that, and then pretty much yes, it is like a beat 'em up, kind of like Smash Bros, but more 3D. It's like you can actually freely move around. It's not like a 2D platformer where you can only go left and right. You can actually kind of run around, grab stuff, and throw it.
What is it called?
Power
If y'all are,
Stone.
if y'all are interested in playing older games, there's this app out on iPhone now called Delta.
Um,
Where you can play older games like N64 games and Game Boy games and Game Boy Advance games on your iPhone.
nice.
Yeah, using emulators.
Oh, he's wondering if you have to pay for it.
Oh, no, it's free. You just have to download the ROM off the internet, which is how emulators work.
Is it only available on iPhone or is it available on Android too?
It's available on iPhone because there are already emulators on Android. So this one was made for the iPhone because prior to that there were no emulators for the iPhone, but this is the first emulator for the iPhone.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been playing Pokemon Stadium on it. I mean Pokemon Stadium 2. Yeah, I've been playing Pokemon Stadium 2 on it.
That's so cool.
There was like someone at MagFest selling like a tiny SNES version that had like I don't know how many games, like 1,000 games from like you can play as like the adventures from the area. A ton of them.
Wait, hold on.
It was like an emulator, but
You say SNES. Are you sure you don't mean
it was
NES?
how do you pronounce it? Is it NES or SNES?
Okay, so this is the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Uh-huh.
You're saying SNES, Super Nintendo Entertainment.
It's the second, it's like the sequel.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, okay, so like I think you mean NES. NES.
The first one that came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never see.
So I have like a second revision. It's the original version of the box that you.
It was more of like the one where like it flips opens.
Yeah, that's
and then you put the cartridge flat. Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so you you played this as a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, that's kind of cool.
But he was selling it for like 300. I was going like, I don't know. That's the same with the new system.
Right.
most
Makes sense.
likely
There's not
pirated.
many
It's one of those like 301 games.
Mhm. So for me, why I got into games is like as like I talked about, I had a very multidisciplinary background. The way that games themselves are interdisciplinary is like something that I really love. If I have to choose an art form, I kind of get all of them. Mine is culinary art. You know, if you make a game about food, then you're hitting up all of the art. But like, I just like love like being able to go in and do something and then switch and do something else. All the different experiences. One. The other reason why too I wanted to get into games, it gave me an avenue to tell my own stories and create worlds because you could work like for a AAA studio and you could be in there for 50 plus years and never actually like get to the point where you have any and like I want to be able to like make art that create worlds like that I want to be in. So I felt like having a studio was a great way to be able to make sure that I
I graduated from like a year after that. I graduated with a degree in so what became more completely kind of means that like those were the pieces that we overlapped, but that largely was taken and specifically animation. Before college, my arts background was very similar. It was entirely offer things like making art programs. So that was something I had to learn in school. Um, so yeah, mostly like driving to watercolor. Um, my first game I'm pretty sure is Unreal Dragon. We had growing up we had a PlayStation 2 with like this really cool like racing game set up, like the wheels and the pedals, and I was just not. I got started with Dragon and and so unlike Ashley, Ashley was very much about planner. And I learned by doing. So I did not like go into games until my freshman year of college when I took for that first year I tried to take as different art as possible to kind of decide what I like. So I went into art school because I knew I wanted to continue art, but I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go from there. Which is why I was like, try everything else. And then from doing an animation and game class, this is what I want to do. I think it's in 3DS. It has very special things in it, so I still play it. Um, and yeah, so for me, why games really, it really came down to like, I did it and I enjoyed it. But I found that like, probably being a studio artist wasn't for me. That's like, I really like working on team. I like kind of building something that's being interactive. And the way I like
So raise your hand if you've ever made a game.
Me, yes.
I tried out the kind of like the pre-made on a website. Like Giphy has like a make your own game system. If you upload certain GIFs, you can make a game in there.
Uh, so I'm attempting to so one of my other projects that shelf, but I'm gonna try and pick it back up again. I'm actually trying to force an arcade game to beat the cliffhanger. So it's like Dragon Slayer, but it uses footage from a Miyazaki movie, Castle Cagliostro. But yeah, it's just you watch the movie play, and you have to hit a button at a certain time. It's basically one big kind of event.
That's so cool.
Um, yeah. So um, So other projects that I made back in high school, I made like a Zelda style pack for like a liked it so much that he said like keeping it.
Wow.
And if you guys have Mario Maker, you know, you can always make a level.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I had it on 3DS. My only gripe with it is the way the tower works. So like you know how in Mario like you get a mushroom, the next time you get a mushroom flower.
Yeah.
It's always a mushroom. It's like
Um,
Like
you think Nintendo would know better.
like you should look up the I forget what it's called. It's like Mario. It's like a musical version where people set up the levels so that you don't really do anything, but pretty much it just directs Mario so that he's just smacking into stuff, but it makes a tune out of it.
Okay,
It's
so
like so it makes a
I know
song.
what you're talking about, but like I want to say something. They did something similar, but they didn't do it in Mario Maker. They actually like hacked into Mario World. And the song that they're doing is it's really dated. Um, like 2017 dated. All right. But like they made like an automatic Mario World level where it plays Pen Pineapple Apple Pen.
Oh, okay.
wow, I feel like
While you guys are talking, I'll
yeah,
look
if
for
you
it.
find it later, let us know. Our friend who used to run my good was always like. So these are some of the games that we made. We'll kind of go through this. So as Kirsten mentioned at the beginning, we've made 10 games in the studio, but actually Spoiler is the first one that we're looking to like do like a full like published release of it. So we wanted to touch on a few of our games here. So all of these are like our older ones. The top two and the one on the left are all hybrid games. And so they are games that are like working in both this digital and this physical space. And so that's the game I was telling you about. It's like kind of hard to show people to it now because you need like specific equipment to run it. And then the bottom right is a 3D game that we've made, and it is also a party game. So these are kind of all of the party games that we've made at the studio. The only games really as a studio that we kind of dabbled in is we haven't done any VR games, but you as an individual. And then so all of these are games that we will game jam. And so we will talk about game jams a little bit fun, but there are some like smaller scale experiences that you can get. Some of these are available on itch.io, some are available on the Game Jam website. And honestly, like they're all the bottom three are a great jumping off point for where we might go next after. So when start hearing soft reports of the other animals in the forest, Charlie Ruth is kind of an animal of this alien outcast experience, kind of returns to the world. So powered by food, the further and can be explore the new lands in further in development right now. But it is outside of the 2.5 because of the game, they support. So all that is to say that it visually looks like a pop-up book with each of the elements. And use some happening to for the environment. This is a newer version of our trailer. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but we've started rebuilding Spoiler from the ground up. And so this trailer that we just watched is actually cut entirely from the tutorial level, but we'll probably be releasing one this. We're hoping to launch our Steam page, and we're going to have a new level that we're debuting that we have rebuilt from the original. Okay, so let's get back into why we made Boba Studios, like before we even talk about like how we made Spoiler and how we did Boba Studios. And it's simple, really. If you remember when we first started, we were explaining we're a small team. We are also women-owned, and so really the reason here, games do not reflect gamers. About 50% of gamers are female, and yet they make up less than 20% people in the video game industry. And that's not even like high level, like people get to be decision makers in games. That's like people who are like, you know, medium and down, mid-tier and down. And so even less games are actually geared for women. And when we consider this too, even less games are actually geared for women. Developers aren't even like, they're just not just on the same page as female developers, though they're also not on the same page as the players themselves. And there's been a lot of talk in the industry recently where people are kind of tired of stale storylines and like repetitive gameplay and updates that don't feel significant or like re-releases from the past. And so we're asking like, think that could be like, why do you think that largely new content isn't being
Demographic as this is what these numbers so yeah, was that as 20% of those. So yeah, what does that mean then for our yeah, it means kind of adds up to things that we did at our own events at our mega Lisbon exhibition, Smithsonian Sam Arcade, and other games. So there's a massive in video.
You okay, Joel?
Huh?
Oh, you made a noise.
I'm still here. I'm just, lying down.
Oh, okay.
Seems like what basically means is like when you're not asking for all voices to come to the table and make stories like and like therefore stories and worlds that we're able to build when not everybody is. And so these are some you might want to start a video game studio. Of course, there's the tell your own story and create your own characters. You like to do multiple jobs, like doing both the art and the game design, or you might like to do the programming and the music. Like you get to make a combination of what that looks like. You get to build your own team. You know, like, we together, but like if we with video, like there's no guarantee we both then have been accepted for a job. There's also no guarantee even that we'd end up like in the same area too if we had to like move for a job or something like that. You can raise awareness and provide jobs to people and causes that you care about. Like again, Boba Studios, we want to like make the video game space more inclusive to both women and like women of color fans. There is a free reign over your content. So in our game, everything that we put into our game is something that we make, whether that's the sound, whether that's the programming, even the song in the trailer that was the kazoo song, like we learned how to play that song with kazoos after writing the music, and then we recorded ourselves playing the kazoos, and it's like very cool to sit there and go like, this should be, we can do that, we can decide that. And so it like lets you explore desired ideas and things by your content and generate an audience based on like the specific niche that you want. And like that like soft pop-up style, like that maybe not something that every gamer might look for, but those are the people that are gonna resonate with us if we want to build games with them. And so you can also create an inclusive space for practicing according to your company. Increase representation in your industry and guarantee safety and credibility within our studio. I mean, like us personally, I think we kind of avoid a lot of things because there is sometimes a lot of danger about being a woman in games. And I know if you're following BDC, you can hear about like all of the things that even just happen at the conference each year. So by putting ourselves in a where we kind of make the rules for our own studio, we don't have to put ourselves like in harm's way for that. It also provides jobs and mentorship. I mean, I would love to get back to our community that helped us get here into like, how can we invest in other game designers? How can we like bring more people into games? I mean, just having more games, more people means more games, and having more games is never a bad thing, right?
So how did we get started? So before we kind of get into some stuff that we did in the industry about what came before that. So a couple of reasons why we would recommend doing that. So firstly, it's going to take in college you'll have time where you really can focus on your studies. It's really hard for kind of when you're out. So you can form these company work camps early. This is really important. They need that kind of really out, and it can require people that what you're doing, and kind of be able to work decisions being kind of critical of your own, because games are meant to be. It's fairly important that the people that are going to play your game like that. So being able to kind of take that to people and apply it in a way that makes your work better. Kind of getting into that mindset of test early, revise your work, and also in college you can also find those opportunities where you'll be in a group of people that are in the same boat as you. You're learning at the same speed, you're learning at the same skill level, and so these people will then become your network once you graduate. But then your college will also offer you things like career center or your professors who are in the industry. You're able to form those connections, and that will help you kind of push that and and then there's other support connections. And with the people that are in your major, you're on the same boat. The more that you can learn from each other and figure out, of course, it prepares you for the industry. So kind of out of the classroom while you're still in school, you practice, learning about your work, learning how to network, and just, yeah.
Like you all, because you already are, more to point out things that you might not be thinking about while you're here. Like sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in like what you have to do. It's just a reminder that like there are a lot of things out you like establish or connect with if you take the time to seek them, because it's every and so then after that is when we actually began learning the industry, and we did a little bit like we were doing shows and stuff before we graduated. But so here's like you're going to conventions for feedback. Like there's mention video games. Like when you release your game, you're not going home with your players to teach them how to play. Like not so you need to make sure that you're ready for their playing. If your game isn't telling you not intuitive, what do you want to happen? You have to figure that out. And so we go to and We also go to build an audience and like make connections. That's an indie game studio. Like if Nintendo put out a thing that was like, we order the game out tomorrow, as long as the GameStop's open, as long as Walmart, Amazon, and Target have websites, people will pre-order that game and then it's an indie studio, but you know, if we want to people to target and get it in front of them. We've done a lot of conventions, but we also do game jam. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, several game jam games. And so one that we make time for every year is the global game jam, and there are a whole bunch of game jams. And they don't have to be, they can also be online. But game jams are a great opportunity to try out new skills. They're a great opportunity for inspiration. When you work in like a long project, it kind of just, you know, feels endless, and it's a kind of way to like re-up on your inspiration and motivation and be like, oh, I tried out this really cool thing and I'm super excited about it, and now I'm ready to hop back and start game again. Helps you also practice tools, practice new skills, and meet new people. Those people end up being your next coworker if you go into AAA. They could be your business partner if you go into indie. They could be a mentor. They could just be a lifelong friend, somebody that you play games with. You know, many different things when you kind of get out there. And it's another portfolio piece. It's another piece you take to a show too. If you're like working on a game and you release it and you haven't started on a new game yet, but MagFest is coming up and you're like, I want to get in there still just so people still know I'm around. Take a game that you did again, Jam. That's a great one.
Also great, things like once you're in the industry, maybe a down network like where you can kind of have that space with you and kind of,
Right.
like I know a friend of ours who did so largely programming for his job, but then for game jams we'll do now.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
an opportunity to kind of do something that you maybe don't get to do in your daily life, but are.
And there's like no stakes if you can't get fired from a game jam for not doing the programming you wanted to out. You know, it's like it's just yeah.
I went back and go, and I played a barely functioning like the volleyball game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that they have tables, open tables, just so that anybody who wasn't able to sign up early could just bring out their laptop and let people try out their game.
And we did that with programmer one. Yeah. And so of course networking too, meeting other devs, producers, publishers, you know, people who are in your industry with you. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, of course, by going to shows. And there are other devs there, but there's also things like the International Game Development Association. There, it's all around the globe, you know, international. And the city might have one, like we have in Baltimore's one, but sometimes two universities have their own. And then there's also special interest groups like Women in Games or I'm blanking on like the rest of them. There's a special interest group for like arcade games and like alt control stuff and things like that. And so there are a bunch of ways that you can like both join a place where you go locally and meet people in person, but also then meet like that specific niche in your industry. And so there's also a lot of discords too. There's a lot of indie video game discords, and you can go and like talk with devs all around the globe and you know connect with people, have people to work with, have people to meet up with, and yeah. Tutorials and workshops too, like learning how to do it from other people makes it easier not only to start, but like having somebody to refer to get stuck if you get stuck. And so figure out what those resources are for you. You know, like if you're working in Unity, their library, where you can learn their resources is massive, very comprehensive. All engines have that. And so like finding somebody on YouTube who might be somebody that you can trust or Udemy is they're like great ways to find other people, but also just going to IGA. Like I said, like we'll talk a little bit about it later, but we have a plugin in our game that we have literally the guy that made it, it's like one Unity award is in the IGA chapter that we go to. And we just kind of he's just like, oh yeah, I just made this gang, it might help you out. And we're like, wait, you made what? And so, you know, that's like it's why it's great to like go and do things and meet well, you might meet and those people might help you out. And sometimes we're like, hey Tony, how do you do this thing? And he's like, it's not a feature, but I'll make it a feature. Give me a few days, and it's great. All right.
Uh,
Little background information too. Squirrely was our project at the Maryland.
So our first decision, as we're using it, was for the nature of the with the and so from there we kind of built the world in around her, making her quite literally the rest. So for deciding the actual design of the bosses, we'll often start with kind of brainstorming what their backstory is. That we kind of like rely on. We'll decide their backstory, what mechanic might fit that like type of feature. For example, we do like rural wrecking thing. What kind of features you want to and then they're unique. Yeah, and so once all these things are decided, the characters, the mechanic, and their backstory, then we'll kind of build out the level around. Because mine, we finalize the major story of the game. And so as we're building out these levels, we can go back to that. And the teams of the first part also have a kind of a complete backlog of ideas. Kind of always. So I don't know, do you have a piece of project here?
I think, yes, I haven't been asked to make one yet, because like I'm not in my senior year yet.
Okay.
But I know a friend at UMBC, he's doing a thesis animation for his final project.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we started out as our team, we wanted to take a lot of care with making the story and the game and art. This world of Orlando Rap. But due to its time constraints, because of these projects, a lot of the pre-production steps that determine things like the look and feel of each level, otherwise concepting, had it because of those like graphic deadlines. And in the original, it ultimately resulted in really cool. It felt generic and bland. What is the one poorly rabbit? Because the car also on brand. And so it didn't feel like
Like, I'm hearing squirrel eater rat.
poorly grew rabbit.
Oh,
Squirrel, part kangaroo. We kind of skipped over actually like how we got into making squirrel, but because she was a thesis project, one of our friends in the class was like, Kirsten and I had made a game and that revolved around a color mechanic years before. We kind of wanted to bring that back. And so we were like looking at like, well, what can we do around color? And that kind of got the ball rolling when we made it active and watercolor, and then we started looking at children's storybooks. Then our friend in the class came over and he was like, I made this character and I've never used her, but I made it for my niece. And she's the squirrel rabbit. I don't make games like that, but it sounds like in the storybook thing that this might be real. And so here's the sketches and just like ran with it, and it's like the most critter that I have ever seen. And so that's actually why she's a squirrel rabbit kangaroo, and we have since tied it into the story, but that was actually she was gifted, or her idea was gifted to us. And so really like the big problem of level 1, which is the big image right here, it was a problem because each level introduced a group of animals in unique environments. And so without individual identity, there's expectations and everything that matches it feels unacceptable. So we don't want the world, Early Rune's world is standard. So when you take world, it shouldn't be. Integrate this story accurately, updates beyond the narrative became necessary as gameplay key to players. And so we went about this by creating new environment sketches, ensuring the sound of each one of the characters. The very boxing puzzle to guarantee the world felt like its own adventure and that each was connected to a larger story. So because of this, we set out to rebuild Scrolly Rabbit in 2020 because like we weren't, home. We didn't have shows that we were already on the schedule to take it to, so we had time to go, not just but like utterly just pulverize it. And just start over. And so it was a great opportunity to go back and fix those things that we were. Top image is the thesis image, and the bottom is like what the game mostly looks like today. The chameleons actually have been recolored back. You know. So one of the major things that we were looking at Boba Rabbit fully integrate the story into the design of the game. So it felt like you were just actually stepping into Swirling Root's world. And to do this, we really doing. We care a lot about the holistic approach of the game, and so designing each part of the game so that it feels like it has a cohesive vibe. So to do this, we kind of make our game design very, very complicated. We kind of design everything in tandem. So the design of the game happen at the same time in these things. So that means that we're like, so we need to have we need to introduce a new NPC here, so it's like something new, right? But how do we make it so that their mechanic relates to the story? And then how do we make it so the puzzles that you have to do that have to also all of this stuff up together. I don't know if you like imagine like a stool. There's like the little pillars and then the little seat is like what people's actual level. And so every time a section is added, the others get reinforced to reflect it, and additions are always confirmed so that they make sense within the world. And so you can see this here. These are actually our literal plans for level 1 as it is today, and how we started with that. So pictured here, one of the major things in the main entities of the world of level 1 are these things. And they're dealing with a halt in construction because they can't actually like pay off the bets that they have to make in their world, which is like this amusement spa hybrid. And so what you're experiencing in Swirly Roo is what this looks like for construction. And so you have a lot of these levels that are dealing with like scaffolding and unfinished business or unfinished building. And that is like what makes up the bulk of the puzzle sector. And so to reflect this, we want to have it not just be mechanic, should be the mechanic, but also in the story building, in the way that when you walk in, you see those unfinished buildings, the way that as you walk through things, you hear the sounds of hammering, or you hear the sounds of not in the places that have been abandoned. Like, what do the characters say to you to also help reinforce the shoot come at you every day? And so it made sense to do these scaffolding-based puzzles. And then that was a little bit different from what we had in the original version of level 1, which ultimately had us change one of the NPC types mechanic to reflect breaking scaffolding, so we could make that more of like and Cami are powered by fruit. And by that, we mean that the core mechanic of the game lies in the solving puzzles by intent, and occasionally mismatching different colors in the world, and we have them in like bushes and baskets and different things like that. Because at the end of the day, Swirly Roo's mechanic is wielding this fruit, but what they do in the environment.
All right.
What they do in the environment and what they do.
Hey guys.
Hey there. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
You got the NES model?
Yeah, it's the top loader model.
What? That seems extra weird.
Wait, hold on, wait. Guys,
Sorry. And so like what basically like what that means is when really we're wielding her mechanic of throwing fruit and changing the color, what how the environment reacts to the items in the environment, the animals in the environment, all different based on mechanics of those specific animals, and that's like what we need. So if you go understanding of how color mixing works, the player can understand the world, enjoy the story, and solve the puzzles and the color. And so as pictured above, you can see swirly or color matching a fruit with gate text. And like while that's and you're certainly making animal friends along the way, sometimes you color mix, to progress in the world too. And so more on that like evolves as the levels go on, it gets more complex, much later in the tutorial version where you're more just learning to match on like, even Darren of the game are good. And so that's kind of up to us as the designers to get it across to them. So that way, when we get into the actual levels of the game, we can build like more complex stories and like, or more complex puzzles and like break up the gameplay with like different versions. Like,
To get into a little bit of the technical side of kind of how to build this world, here I have to do is actually gone through several other. So as far as like creating the world, I used to do this for all of these parts. Yeah. The schedule is pretty outlined, the illustrator, and then bring those things to the top to give that color and the little water color. For the video, I use Maya, that's what I learned in school, for texturing and moving. But
You probably haven't heard this game, but the style, it reminds me a lot of Scratch and Melody, if you've heard that game. So this is a game that's like currently in development. It's actually like almost finished. It's a rhythm game like Parappa the Rapper. So and it made its debut in Game Jam Stage. I don't know if the Sonic Amateur Gaming Expo, but they do it's Sonic themed, but you can release other games later. But like the levels remind me of the open world in that game where new characters and it's
Like the Sonic fan game. Oh, I play. No, not Sonic Fire. Kind of like purple cat, but I think that would be. I like Chelsea, like I love I feel like a lot of elements that remind me of I can definitely cheap. Cheap iteration.
Yeah, you can say that out. I probably could pose it. How did you guys, yeah, so it's like, how much in, game, I tried out moving towards, because we're looking at that watercolor, and, it has written, so I tried to think of like, they have colors, and it relies on kind of like turning, kind of done in the world.
in balance. Want to feel like you need almost brightest version of those colors, so they're very distinct. With part of their blue and
The continuing color.
So I can't find any videos of the open world, but like here's one of the main ones. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh.
Like, and the game is fraction melody.
Oh, okay. I can go back on slide two, you can actually see in relation to your question about the color. One thing that we didn't think about when we were deciding like the tones of the color is that like how they would get like mixed with the world, like mixed up with the world tones. And so like, and if you look at this puzzle here, in the new version, the current version of this game, it's actually a purple game. Because the one thing that kept happening is when we had it as orange, orange is a tone that would can come in, even though it's not like a true orange. When you see that in a video game and like your suspension of disbelief, people were like, oh right, okay, that is just game. And so we actually had to change it up to make sure that like with orange specifically, we have to be careful around wood. Or probably in the same way with we have to be careful around water.
Wait, so is this the old version, right?
So this is like the new version of the game, but we actually updated that puzzle and we didn't update it because of feedback or people are getting confused about it was like a color mixing moment.
Oh, this is kind of like a, far-fetched question. Have you guys ever, wanted to make like a production Bible of your, iteration?
I, graduated from my global animation, so actually that was one thing that I was just make kind of like
Yeah.
so that one that we have is limited to that original version.
Before we rebuilt it, yeah, it was, and I'm like a big fan of like books that you can get based on like game releases and art books and the console language and all that, so I would love that. We've also talked about how we would love to actually make like a physical spoiler comic book. And I know for your videos, we actually tried to do it a little bit, but making the game kind of got in the way of actually like the book. But that's something we want to do, is like something, an actual comic book, to accompany this game.
There is Spider-Man. Oh,
What?
I got broken.
Oh.
Yeah, so since the world is 2.5D, that means that we have the 3D and the 3D that are occupied in this world. And a rule of thumb I like to use is that, all characters, like, always, no matter what, are 3D, right? And that leaves kind of the environment to be more on like what is. The general logic is that, like anything that needs to be like large or navigatable, is automatically 3D. Whereas, because you don't have to worry that they're having like difficulty gauging like, where it is, or like in scene, or just kind of worry about especially when like into that. That's a lot of decorative assets that would be 3D because it illustrates to keep that attention to kind of a 3D model, the level, um, we kind of the model is small. So anything with we have a lot more to do.
And one thing to touch on too, is because it is, to provide a little bit of perspective, it takes players a minute to get used to that. And so we have to think about like, how can we make sure that the players always feel grounded in this space? And so one of the things that we do is the fruit is always 2D. But they have actually, like, you can't see it, it's an invisible 3D object following them to provide a shadow. And so when you throw them, you always know where it's gonna land, you know how you're throwing it, and, like, you feel very aware of your action space, because otherwise it feels confusing or could be frustrating to the player to actually play it.
This is gonna sound like a silly question, but have you ever played Paper Mario?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Out your door.
Yes.
I played the one that was on the Wii.
Not color, that's what we use, but
No,
was it Super Game Boy?
it's one where they have, like, they transition from 3D to 2D.
That was
Like they even live around.
where,
Oh, like when the sticker star?
Sticker Star? I think it was,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Sticker
but
Star was on DS. Might have been, yes, Color Splash,
Yeah, it's,
Mario, Mario.
all right,
Another thing to note too, about like that mixing of 2D and 3D is like how shadows work in Conquer and have to like, produce that actively in each level. Like when you have a 3D game, you can set up lighting like in Unity and it'll fix it. And if you move things around, it'll automatically adjust that to compensate based on like, how the lighting is placing. But because we're using 2.5D and have both, we have to both work with the lighting system in Unity and shift hand paint shadows. And so, as if that isn't complicated enough with the 2D assets, we also decided that we wanted to make each level at a different time of day, and that would give like more of like an atmosphere for each level being like really locked in and individual. And so, of course, with the changing times of day, the where shadows fall is different. And so when we go into a level, that's one thing that Pearson's responsible for is making sure that the shadows for the 2D objects match the 3D objects because they're not going to generate like they would in the 3D game and hand painting them to make sure that they're right. And so we really want to make the pre-production like that's part on it. We want to make those decisions up front so she would never have to like go back and redo that because that would be a lot of wasted time.
so the day to night, is it based off, in-game time or is it based on field time?
There is no actually time sequence in the game. When you go through like different parts of the journey, like just different levels, you can get different times, but the game time.
I was going to ask on picking up items. With, combining CD and DVD, how do you guys work with that theory of like gaming and throwing items? Is it like a action adventure game because of the enemies that
So your question is how does the projectile part work?
projectiles, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the way that Swirler works is that there is a fruit or fruit cap. And when Swirler picks them up, she can either hold one in her hand or that like this UI is actually her sword. She's holding it in her hand, like whenever she grabs these objects, they actually disappear or create a new one. And so when it goes into her storage, the item actually despawns and it is replaced by like a 2D UI sprite. Then when you click that button, it regenerates it and then she throws it. And so we work a lot with like how like when the instances should time out because also some enemies. And so part of the thing that even though Swirler feels pretty straightforward when you play it, what gets complicated in the actual coding of it is that Swirly has to take on both like the action and reverse action of each of these items. Like she is both hurt by fruit and she throws that. And so she therefore also produces that. She can't be hurt by her fruit that she pulls out of her house when it generates. But if an enemy throws it at her, she has to be hurt by it. When she picks up an environment, she can't be hurt by it. When she throws it, it has to be able to spawn. If it's in the environment, it can't spawn. And so there are a lot of like little rules and little changes. And so we kind of work through like around those things by creating different instances based on like who's throwing it, where did it originally spawn from? Was it from a bush? Was it from a basket? And then how the player then like enact.
Like take so her sort of things shadows sometimes with onto the model. But otherwise you do There's like, this is all kind of generated in the level, but like with, with a rock. This is actually, so it's
And
actually
where
the, right, yeah, like this is generated. So like, I'm kind of just still have to see each object.
So you're making this community. Are you aware of the recent controversy?
What happened in community?
So basically they're nickel and diming their, developers.
Oh,
So-
that is.
Every time.
So pretty much for every time someone downloads their game, they take, I think it was 20 cents, even pirated downloads, they charge the developers for it.
They walked that back and now they're, which is really where they should have started. This is complicated. Honestly, when they announced it, I thought what they were doing was that they announced it so they could walk it back so their new plan seemed nicer. But their new plan actually makes it so we owe them less money than we would if we were using Unreal and have the same amount of players. But it's really not that good. I have feelings also about Unity Studio because it came from EA.
Oh yeah, he was fired from EA for being too greedy.
Yeah.
And now, they go.
Right. And so they weren't doing it based on download.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, the guy that's running Unity, he legit suggested that people pay money for reloads in the first person.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is like, voice critical, so, summarize it perfectly, it's like literal Mr. Crab stuff.
Like,
Yeah.
he hammered it in, it's like, it is a man, and the kitchen.
And so one thing that's still true is that Unity is still free to download, free to use, free to make games on until you make, I think it's $50,000 on your game. And so like, we're not gonna owe them anything until we release it and not unless our game does well. And then if our game does well and we have $50,000, I'll give them money for the fact that we made our game. I mean, that seems kind of like a fair amount. The download things is hard to count.
Use this to spend money to reload. I'm just like the next year. I am.
I mean, they usually get it, like, oh, really, you get it up top.
No, so his
So the whole thing is like-
his reasoning behind it was like, they'll be so like into the action of the game that they wouldn't think about like the money involved in it. They would just in the heat of the action, it's like, oh no, I need 4 bullets now, so I'll just spend a couple bucks here.
I would.
Until you're at the end of a match, you've already spent like $50. You'd have just bought a new game for that.
Imagine trying to like do something like that from a first party and get that. That would be just, oh.
And a lot of the animation that I use after that of the people create of the character. Right, yeah. So it makes it look kind of then it's a model and Photoshop is purple. I can just go into Photoshop and the original file and then all the animations do that. And then I can animate it with that. And yeah, very occasionally I use Photoshop for kind of these hands-on animations. So like the top right, that one Photoshop. Because it was kind of too organized for that in with a rig that was trying to do that another time. So yeah, organic things are reserved for hands-on, but so from there on, export those changes, we can work them. And then for information, so for those, as needed, I'll animate within the modeling program Maya. So so that'll be more for like, sort of complicated, right? That's really my understanding, my block community. But I try to as much as possible animate and do 3D in the image itself. So on the left, you can see kind of that there's this tile that collapses, and the roof comes down and lets it escape. That's done all in Unity so that, you know, if you have any changes that need to be made, or, you know, say the roof drops and it's not dropping up. I can go in and or change those directly in the program that I can do with the system to showing things like that.
Are those ninja burns?
Well, they're kind of chameleon, but they also are wearing like,
Oh. The orange.
Yeah, we do have one of the. Um, so I'm gonna touch a little bit on, how we make our, and then I'm gonna play a video. Remember the performance talking about taking opportunities? This video is exactly what I mean by that, because we just happened to be at the right place at the right time, talking to the right people. And they were like, oh, you make indie games? We're a video game orchestra. We will play your music live. And so like that just happened because we were there, we were present in the moment, and we could take that opportunity. And so we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that's what we're talking about. And so for all of our music and sound, like every other part of the game, we, you know, make all of the parts that go into it. And so largely, we're using Logic and Unity's program Wise. And so Wise is a really, or you might know that's Wise. Actually, not Wise.
I don't know.
How's it spelled? Dude, it's two W's, but the first one just won't technically go out.
What are we talking about?
The Unity plugin for sound Wise. I work with it. So, Wise.
Sure.
Wise is a piece of middleware that integrates with Unity, and is designed to give sound designers and musicians full control over the way that their music is integrated into the game without them having to have programming knowledge, which is really awesome because, like, again, if you're studying music and sound, you can obviously also study programming, but like it doesn't have to be your forte, and it's great that they're actually making, you know, these plugins to make that work. And so one of the things that we really love about Wise is like how smart it is, how much it makes our game immersive through different experiences. For example, like when Swirly Roo, you're not going to hear this video because it's going to be the orchestra music, but if you were to play the game, when Swirly Roo walks on grass, she has a certain footstep. When she walks on wood, she has another footstep. And so Wise tracks that. Is she walking on grass? Stone. And then what it does is we put in, using Foley making the footsteps, we will like take like 5 different grass footsteps, and then Wise will randomize that to make something that sounds like a natural thing. And so it's not just like that you would hear and you like play that in a game and you're like, that doesn't sound natural, so Wise will fix that for us. And other things that it'll do too, it'll measure like how close are you to a waterfall. So we have a waterfall. We went and like live recorded a waterfall in Vermont to include in their game. And when you get close to it, at a certain distance, you can't hear it all, and then you'll start hearing it a little bit. And it not just only like measures the 360 scope around it, so it's not just left and right, but it's not about it just getting louder when you get closer. It's also about it getting cooler. And so like Wise peels back layers of the sound, so that way like it sounds like you can hear more individual droplets when you get closer, and things that are like softer noises that you wouldn't actually hear naturally from far away. It like knows how to implement that and make it right. So it's really awesome. The other great thing that owns for like Rose health system, or when you solve a puzzle, there's a little jingle. It'll listen to the music that we have playing in the background, and then make sure that when it plays those tones, that it'll match actually with the music, so it won't sound super jarring. And so it'll like take the jingle that we've made and like just make it like a little bit more, you know, sharper or flatter or whatever, to make sure that it's hitting different notes. that it'll actually sound great with, with the music that you're currently listening to, because, you know, we take a lot of time, you know, composing the whole songs, and most of them are made digitally, some of them we have live recorded. And so like we wouldn't want to like ruin somebody's experience, because we do need to know that you're helpful as well. And like that's part of design, making sure that. So it's, wow. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm on you guys' Discord.
Oh,
There we go. Yeah, nice to meet you too. Yeah. Yeah. Morocco, yeah. Yes. And you are? Chris, yeah, nice to meet you, Chris. Yes.
Actually, we'll talk about it in a little bit, not the changing section, but it is for on track. And they found out how we made it. So what we did was we rewrote all of the songs to look like a- and then they performed it. And I think I heard from when they played trailer earlier, it starts with. That's- You know, we didn't keep like what they do, they like what would. Wow, yeah, we're working on that actual document. Actually, like this is right now, with their program manager, we're like, we're good on that. And this. Yeah, they weren't as pastel all the time because, we used a little bit of Unity's like coloring system on the textures. And that was one thing that we really liked about it, but, it allowed us like, again, to, in the duration of our thesis project, we probably did like 4.5 hours of gameplay, and so like that was kind of possible. So as an interactive medium, great games are defined by their engaging experiences. And without this, the player will lack a motivation to play and might drop it. To execute these games experiences, you have to build systems that support the play and story and play, also known as design life. And the reason we're talking about that now is so like when we were doing our thesis project, because we had to do things fast, we couldn't always like learn new skills quickly, so we had to build based on what we knew. And so like sometimes, I mean, that is like a fair way to design games. We know a lot of people who just design based on their skills that they already have. But you know, for us, like we want to make the game that we imagine, and so we will like go that extra mile to learn something new, to figure out like how to do this specific thing, so that way we can have it in our game and have it. And so one of the largest overhauls of the original game was to remove the design that was formed to accommodate, you know, those systems and showcase the story as we intended it. A great example of this is this dynamic camera suite that we've integrated called Spin Machine. So basically what this allows us to do is I've planted 7 different cameras along the main camera in Squirrel's house. And so when you go around it, you can see her from dynamic angles and feel like you're a part of her world. You never lose track of her. And that allows us to make more dynamic level design because we don't need to always plan for this camera to be facing this one direction. You'll never lose sight of her and you'll never feel ungrounded because you can't see what it is that she's doing. The other thing that we added this year, in this gift is actually looking for that. We added ray casting to our camera, and so our camera will find when further behind an object and it'll turn it translucent so you can still kind of see it in the real world space, but you also like can see what Swirly Root's doing. And so like just in this little tutorial segment of her house, like as I said, there's like 7 different cameras so you can get her at a different angle going up the stairs. And like around the puzzle, and when she has this moment where she's meeting Cammy, who's her chameleon friend that actually handles her color mixing mechanic, like we want the camera to be focused on this moment because their meeting is very impactful for the game. And aside from like enhancing just the storyline, too, it takes better advantage of this like lush 3D world that we're building for Swirly Root, so you can see where she resides and help make much more interesting possibilities for it. And you know, we want this game to look like paper crafted, so we don't want to shy away from the fact of like, you know, sure there are some scenes that we don't want to cover up, or that we do want to cover up, but like for the most part, like we want people to look and feel like, oh, that is supposed to look like it's made. So we want people to be close and personal. The other thing too that we've integrated as a plugin is Pixel Crusher's dialogue system for Unity, and as I mentioned earlier, we were actually working on building out this dialogue system, and I had like this system that was like, it was tracking what events were supposed to happen in the level, and those were categorized based on cutscenes and battles and side quests, and all of those things were reading and feeding into this thing, which was tracking like what was supposed to happen and when. And then we go to this IGBA meeting, IGADC, and there's this guy there, and we've like known him for a couple years at this point, and he's like, oh, blah, 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 I work on this like dialogue for Unity, and we're like, you can do what now? And so if you don't know, the dialogue system for Unity is one of the top downloaded Unity assets. It's won awards from Unity itself. It's amazing, it's comprehensive, it has storage systems, it has quest systems, it has relationship building. It handles like the tree so you can have a choice making game for the story. And so we're like, why are we building this? This guy right here, like if we just use his system and integrate with our game, we can do the things that like is very unique to us that we are really excited to work on rather than just figuring out its functionality. So yeah, we downloaded Expression Dialogue system for Unity, and then sometimes we'll be like working on our game and we're like, oh, I don't know, this thing isn't working like I expected to, and then we just like text him and we're like, hey Tony, how do you do this stuff? And he'll be like, this is how you do it, or he'll be like, that's not a feature yet, let me build that. And so it's like great, and that's another reason that's important to like go and meet your other fellow game devs because you don't know who's working on what or who's building what, and it can completely revolutionize our game. And so like now we have a dialogue system that we integrated in about a month, as opposed to like when I was building it, I'd already been working on it for several months, and then the hint system was giving me trouble, and like, and that was part that we got stuck with, but the dialogue system was that it saved so much more time, and then we could just move on to doing the thing that we actually want to do, which is like making a full experience of the game rather than make it.
All the Unity plugin aspects are different.
It might have been like one of those things where you donate what you feel like. And why actually is free as a, there's a free version, but why is like if you have a certain amount of sounds in your game, you have to pay a subscription. But they just changed that like this week. So if your game has a revenue under $25,000, it's $250,000.
How long is this meeting?
Who said that?
Oh, that was, yeah, oh yeah, I got Jules, on Zoom. So I made it as an option.
Tell him to stop being
Oh.
rude.
Oh, so I mean,
Right.
so I'm just curious to know how long it is.
Well, gonna go on for a while, you know.
We have like 6 or
Oh.
7 more.
Mhm.
But if you need to
Oh,
know.
well, in that case, I think I'll just log off now.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I'll still leave the Zoom on. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so now why is this free actually for our game? We were actually getting them to like apply and try to get like a less subscription because we're on the free system, but they limit how many sounds out. Our game budget as well.
About, um, that means like, how do we make this our,
How can we make games that worrying if we connect to it?
Yeah.
someone without something high, so we're team four, for you to get later, and so with a lot of people. For one thing, it, kind of creates a new work, so we're a small team, so that means that like, we can work on our own, you know, our role and work part in, video writing, but what that means too is that like, kind of, we can talk with each other as, so anytime we like, we throw out anything, you know, that's on communication where you're like, I'm really sorry, when I think you can be like, I'm not together tomorrow. We can do that. It's through the ability to kind of, you know, make this.
Because we're a small team, we do have influence. Literally, we have a whiteboard wall, and we'll like go up and when we're designing a new level or creating a new character or writing a new part of the story, we'll like brainstorm together and everybody gets.
Something that we want. Yeah, and also you can then make your team different. You know, with you know, if you're working alone, that means that like you have to make music out, you just do something great. You have to market, you have to figure it out. You know, being on the team, you can kind of like spread that work around.
Right.
And,
Yeah, like exactly like tax is tough, right? But like for a long time, like it was my. You're even trusting, you're doing like, we need you to come and do their parts. Yeah. When is it? I think about 2 years.
2 years. That's nice.
Wait.
It's like, they just like, so he didn't drop.
Okay, right.
He had a bunch of games.
Yeah. It was like his last and final project. It was like they hit a run.
Oh, like Final Fantasy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was opening it all.
Yeah.
So, what would be like your estimated hours on what game on a weekly basis? Monthly basis?
We do things wrong. Compared to in a studio, we work on our game full time, and then we take part-time working commissions, and because we really like, we want this. Not to say that other people don't, but like, we're more prepared to be like, okay, we're gonna work really hard on this right now. And then we'll like plan around things like rent and food and like not have as much luxury and space there, but because we want to get this out and love what we do and do that, that with us later. And so we try to like work on our game, like as much as possible. And it's time because, yeah, I mean, that is really what we want to do.
Sometimes you guys.
Long, long project that like. I think so, yeah, every opportunity you can, and how they can help. But it's essentially industry and then of course if you go to any networking events, parents, that's nice, that's part of the thing. You're ready to talk and and then yeah, keep in contact with us. So many of the opportunities that we've had that fully unexpected, like yeah, so it just comes from like being willing to talk about what we do and learn about make that connection.
So, how did we get the ball rolling? So it's kind of two major parts. We like grew our audience, our network, make connections. All right, so establishing a presence. So doing things like connecting your audience, you never know what connections will make. I know we've said that. We will continue to keep saying that. That still happens to be true, and that's why it's great present in the moment. You could find a new teammate or even a mentor because like that's how we found each other on the game together. We worked on that game together too because I just said that I liked Harvest Moon, and then Kirsten was like, I like that game too, and that's how we got started. And so as part of that, you want to like establish who you are with your audience too, like provide updates so that they know that the game is coming out, so that they can be excited to listen to feedback, like show them that you actually like take their work and do it count. Again, games are interactive. They are made for other people because it's interactive. Like if they can't get through it, you're always welcome to make a game for yourself and only focus on how you experience it, but it might not do as well commercially. And so for like a team like ours where we want making our games the same that we do, we have to always be looking at it. And honestly, like that's what I really love about design is like thinking about how other people think and how we can like work that in the story to make them like feel certain things. And so showing that too, showing that you're listening to feedback is also a matter of perspective, affecting your audience will like really attending events. That's again how we do also research and development to make sure that our game is functioning the way that we want it. Iterate. We learned a lot. A lot of our events are like 3 days long. And you can even, if we wanted to, like we can sometimes update at the event. We try not to do it on the actual floor because we want to be present with people and make sure people are playing. And I know it's really hard as people in the games industry will tend to be really introverted, but it's a really important skill because it's like that's kind of how we figure out what's up with our game and what's connecting and what people want. But if we could go back to the hotel room, pop out another update and bring back a new version the next day, and that's happened before. There was like this one hole in the wall that like going down the staircase, everybody got stuck in, and like I never even knew about it. Like it never occurred to me to try to vault over this railing, but everybody did all day long, and it didn't stop until we just went in and we made sure it was sealed, and then we were like done. And then we could actually get like new feedback, but that's what everybody was getting stuck on was jumping through a thing and then they couldn't move.
You mentioned that Pac-Man dungeon crawler I mentioned earlier. Before class came to the day, we had Sunday game. Before class was starting, I was sitting out in the hallway. I was putting some last minute updates, and when it came time to present, the players, other students couldn't even get that title.
Oh wow.
So luckily, my teacher allowed me to use the last minute work before I officially turned it in. So that stopped it. So I was fortunate that nobody else got to play it. But yeah, for context, back then I was working with Scratch.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you heard of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Oh, I know.
I heard it's
Have
gotten
you
like
ever heard of game store mechanics before?
I heard it's actually got like way better like lately.
Yeah, there was some kind of product, with,
I just think it was very limited.
Yeah, so to be so real with you, they tell you that indie games are most likely going to fail, and that they'll fail if you don't. And so that's what we were like, we are not taking any chances on our dream. We're gonna just do it. And so like I know, like I mentioned too, like as people who are naturally introverts, it is hard to figure out how to get outside your shell and like kind of make that connection. But I think like that's the thing that might actually be the reason why. And like while we can't know, you know, fingers crossed, we can always. And so we try to you know, it's a little bit more that be everywhere, do everything, be present in the moment. We do a lot of conventions. We've done over 100 conventions.
I was want to say, do you do any other special things you in Maryland?
Yeah. So we're trying to go national, and I hope we can. The farthest that we go right now is 6 hours away. But we do have people who will come back every year and be like, I'm looking for the updates for your games. And so when we go to our booths, we also like make a point of making sure we did a bad job of it today because we totally forgot to bring these. But when we come to talks, we normally bring a bag that has like a newsletter, sign up sheet, we have cards, and we do have cards a lot. It has our QR codes, and you can find us on most social media. And you can just like scan it and then follow us on Instagram, scan it, pop in our Discord and things like that. And so we try to make sure there are as many happening as possible with people that they can continue to follow our page. And so it really is just like adding people like one at a time. It's hard on the internet too, like shouting into this like void when people could be anywhere else. Like why would they find our website? Why would they find our social media account online? It's easier to get them when they're in person. But like
Kind of way. So like a couple years ago, I launched I wanted to do a shop by shop remake of the original Ghostbusters.
oh wow.
Like a reanimated collaboration.
Yeah.
I was actually about to do that.
But I advertised everywhere. Or I went on YouTube. I put together a little video. And like 2 people showed up. That's it.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you can't give up. It's really what it is.
Well,
You
you
have
have
to.
all like Twitch, like social media platforms and actually,
Yeah, they have different.
anywhere.
I think my mistake was with YouTube video. I didn't put the like the little like
You guys know.
Yeah.
That's how you get them. That's how you
Yeah.
kind of bring it.
And the most important thing for social media too is feed, because the algorithm will back you when you post. Right.
Yeah, algorithm. I actually animation.
Doesn't like finding your groups. I mean, different groups are on different things. There are a lot more artists on Instagram and Threads, but a lot more game devs are on Twitter. Still, I mean, they're leaving Twitter,
yes.
but like, a lot have gone either to Mastodon or guys, you know, and so.
Blue Skies are
Blue
kind of
Skies
like a
don't like
fucking
it,
copy.
yeah. With no flagrant human rights violation.
Yeah.
And so we try to like do like be present for anybody to look for us too, because like, if that's just one more avenue that we can access people, that's like one more person who can come and find our game. And so, and like actively posting, actively engaging when people reply, make sure that you talk to them. If you ever message us in our Discord, like we will talk to you back. And we'll touch a little bit on like what our professional practice is like on the next slide. The other thing too is like, while you're building professional relationships too, like don't forget about your organizations that are around you. Don't forget that like there are people who are game devs who do work for AAA studios, but they're actually real people. They walk around, they go to the grocery store. And so like we met Tim Train, who's the founder of Big East Games in Baltimore, and like and because of that, and because we were talking to him, he got a whole bunch of the people in the studio like and they were having like an active poll. They were like, I think there was like money involved, honestly, where they were like betting on how the grass is animated. And then he came to us and he was like, everybody is invested. Like everyone in the studio is invested. How is this grass animated? And same thing with like Young Bell from Firaxis. It's like he actually brought us, or not Firaxis, he actually brought us into the Sparky Pants studio to do like a play test in front of everybody, and then pitch our game when we were doing the venture competition that we'll talk about later. He like brought us in actually back in front of the studio, and they gave us feedback and like helped us shape like how we're telling our stories, from people who have experience. And that's why, like, your school has a lot of connections, and so take advantage of that. IGA or like we were the Women in Animation group at Micah has a lot of connections. Take advantage of this. This is a great group. So I know you're bringing in a lot of people and doing a lot of that extra work, and so that can like take you a long way when you leave. And so as a part of that too, like ask for advice. Because you never know what angle somebody's coming from. And while the advice not be applicable to you, you might not know it if you never heard it. And so like that could really like change the way that you think about something just because one person has to hear it. And so talk around, be open, talk to other devs, talk to your career counselors, talk to your teachers. They might not even necessarily be in your industry. I know we made kind of a big decision that we decided we're going to self-publish rather than look for a publisher, actually because of talking to my middle school art teacher who is a published comics book author. We go to conventions and we ask him all the time, we're like, what kind of car do you have? Like, what do you use this thing? And we ask him like so many things, but he doesn't like do video games, but it's just as relevant if he's doing, similar thing. And he was telling us a lot about his experience both with Kickstarter and both as a publisher, and how he got really blindsided by his publisher 10 years ago. And so he went self-published, and then he was talking about what that experience was, and we're like, we could we got 2 publishing offers last year, and they were less. Remember, they're either really small, they're just as indie as you are, or they're really big and picking up. And when they're picking up everybody, they're more likely to want equity in your company, to own the rights to your game. And so it's complicated because we don't want to play that. We want to be able to decide what we're doing with this world, your IP and where it goes. But if they're really little, they don't have as much. And so a lot of indies need help us marketing it out there. But both of these offers than what we actually spend on marketing for what we were right here. And that was for the whole development. And so why are we going to give somebody, money to do something that we're already doing in the past? And so that's why it's important, just like ask around other people's experience. And also remember, support is built on trust. That's everything from your professional connections to your audience. Like you are as good as your word is in this industry. The games industry is pretty small, especially like comparatively to other industries. People small. And so just make sure that you're being respectful and all right. And so this is a look at our specific.
So, in addition to kind of building connections with your audience, benefits of kind of like putting yourself out there is that you can TV shows and online games, there's been 220,000. And then the bottom is the different companies that we've worked with there. Um,
Like, so we won an award that the best fun award. We've been in the same arcade, we had articles in the Baltimore Business Journal about our video and things like that. And I want to say too, like, the reason that we have this up here is not to brag about these metrics. It's because like we've worked really hard at this. We have a 4.8 rating because we listen to our audience. When somebody tells us something's broken, we go back in. When somebody tells us that they don't like something, we ask why. Like we find out what these things are. We talk very directly with our audience, and we keep iterating and making sure they're close to that process. And that's how you can make sure that like a game, when it comes out, is the game that your audience wants to play. It's involve them in that process. Sure. All right, so now we're gonna get into fun stuff, right? Funding and legal things for the rest of our presentation. Funding takes many forms. Grants, sponsorships, sales, search for and take any and every opportunity because you never know what will come of it. Many of our, the ones that we've had, our connections have literally come to us because of our, and so, we're gonna talk a little bit about a venture competition that we were in, and actually the way that we ended up winning the venture competition is because through the grapevine, somebody that we know, one of our friends was participating in a different venture competition, told us to go do this other one that we hadn't done before. We drove out there, and then out there, we met the founder, the person who gives the money, right, funds the full program. We met her, and she told us what was wrong with her. Nobody else had told us that information because nobody wanted to say it. And so I'll get to what that actually was in a minute, but it's like that's, the kind of thing that you find out just through this. And so, yeah, apply, because if you don't put yourself out there, you just not yourself. And so you never know what you're gonna get. And so, things like, I don't know, we've been in a bunch of gallery shows in the past year. We're like, do people want art in a gallery show? Not art, video game art in a gallery show. Like, I don't know, but we come from an arts background, and so like I do pay attention to those things that happen to go on. And so like one day there's like one of my friends who actually she wants to own an art gallery was like, hey, I'm gonna go apply to this gallery. You want to do it too? Like we just need to go down there with a piece. And I was like, let's do it. And so we went and we got one of our pieces and we framed it. It's literally Swirly Brew art. And we took it and it was in the show and it got auctioned off. And there was a bidding war over it. Whoa. And it got auctioned for like $125. And it's just like this little, part from the game. Wicked. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, that's the answer about games in our gallery.
Yeah, exactly. We do want games in our galleries. That's what that means. But like, you never know if you don't try. So don't stop yourself. Don't be the first. Okay, so this is the venture competition. So, what it was, it's called Upstart. We graduated from the Maryland Institute College of Art, and so this is a program that is available to MICA grads only. But Towson has a program that is similar and is also not only available to Towson grads, it's available to people. And so Upstart is a creative entrepreneurship competition for venture funding. And so basically what that means is you're pitching for funding up to $100,000 for your creative business. You're not guaranteed to actually get $100,000 because that's the total pool. They divide that among the winning. There are 3 stages to it. There's the application stage. There is one pitching stage, like a pop-up pitch where you're there with the tabling. And then there's the final one where you have the tabling, you pitch to the judges, and you pitch to a live audience of platform. And so what we did is we're a little lucky. Kirsten and I are a year apart. And so what that meant is we had 3 opportunities to do Upstart. We could do it the year that I graduated. My year out was the year that she graduated, and then the year that her 1 year out. And so we knew we were like, we need to start this now because we went into our thesis project. Like when I asked Kirsten to do thesis with me, I was like, I want to make this game with you, but I want to use it to launch it. And so like, let's figure out during our thesis time how we're going to. And so we made it doing Upstart part of that. And so, yeah, I mean, we got assigned mentors from local game studios. We were in and out of the career development office, and we just worked so hard. My brother's in business. We got a lot of advice from him, and we just kept talking to people and asking them, and we'd write our plan, and we'd rewrite our plan. And honestly, the plan that we turned in 2017, 2018 are so different because the big thing that happened in between those two is that we put a game online and we started going into meta. And so we had a grasp of the industry that we just did not in 2017. So in 2017, we got through the first two rounds, but we did not make it to the finals. And so we like weren't really sure, and this is the story that I was like alluding to earlier, like what we need to change. This one office at our school came up to us and where they were like, our entire office voted for you, I don't know what. But the judges are, creative professionals around the Baltimore area. And so, that was when our one friend told us, hey, to go try shorthand. And so we did, and we pitched it, and we also didn't get that. And then, Carol Ratcliffe, who is literally the woman in charge of giving money to both. It's her foundation that gives money for both our and her husband. Came and found us, and she was like, I want you to know that when the judges were doing the judging, you were the last team cut so high. And the reason they cut you is because they couldn't get behind giving money to you. And she was like, you probably can't get them on board with the game, but you can get them on board with something else. And so figure out like how you can tell your story to make them on board with you, not the game. And like leave the game, you know. And so we did. We rewrote our pitch. We were like, we want to be in the video game studio and the video game industry to be able to tell our own story, make a safe place for us and make sure our voices are heard. And we knew we wanted to be like a women owned and run studio. And that wasn't really something that we were talking about. We were talking more about like impact studio. And so we were like, we took that out and we switched it. And we were like, this is why women should be in games. Women should be invited in these spaces. And that all of a sudden resonates with everybody because like, they're a business owner, they might be a woman, and they're like, yeah, I don't make video games, but I think women should be allowed in your industry too. Or they might have like mom or sister.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so all of a sudden everybody got on board and they just didn't think about how it was video games. And so that actually, like, we went so hard too, we rewrote our business plan and everything. We practiced every day pitching. I mean, that's that picture. There's a room at Micah that's very similar to this.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be locked and we would take it over. And we hook up our laptop and set it up and we have a clicker just like you would on stage. And we practice several times a day for like over a month. We'd bring in our friends and we'd be like, Pratika, sit in the back of the room, can you hear us? Sit in the front of the room, can you hear us? We had a person who does sound come in and be like, this is how you hold a microphone away from your face. Because like this is the amount of distance that you need based on your, mouth and your arm line. Because again, if you turn people off even just from like how they hear you, they're not going to want to listen to your pitch. And so like we really did everything that we possibly could, and then we went for it again. And this time from the lens that Carol had actually provided us, we got it. We won the competition. And that was huge for us as a small indie team. I mean, it felt also really legitimizing. Like we could actually you could go home and tell your family, like, I know you maybe thought that art school wasn't a great option, but I just got a whole bunch of money to do this thing. So I'm probably good, right? And like, what can they say? You are good, And so,
So a similar thing happened with
mhm.
So he went to film school and he never got like any offers after like 1 year. So but then he put together this work. But he shopped it around different film festivals, and then one of those film festivals just so happened to be accompanied by and then he saw it and he loved the film, and I actually saw it pretty good. And next, he was in front of Ron.
Oh wow.
Oh, that was totally nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the only person that can stop you from trying is you. If other people count you out, just keep going back. Because you're the only person who's to stop. And so, you know, we had the struggles that we endured together and the cohort too made us connections that we will have like lifelong from the program, including like when we needed a certain contract. We hit up like one of the other people who won, and they were able to provide that type of contract for us, so without us having to pay for a lawyer or something. And then of course the funding itself helped us regain a lot of the hardware and software that we were losing graduating from MICA. Because I know like Pearson's computer literally couldn't even handle the animation program that we used to make earlier.
Oh my God.
And so we got her a computer. We got Adobe licenses, my licenses, and then the other half of the funding, we did something that was actually apparently really radical. I don't know why nobody else thought of this, but the judges were like so shocked when we said this, because nobody had ever done it. We allocated half of it to merchandise.
Oh, there, I can think of two examples, one fictional, one non-fictional, where that worked out. So, George Lucas, I come from film, so a lot of my analogies are film. So George Lucas, when he first made Star Wars, he actually, requested a salary be split in half and that he have the merchandising rights to the movie.
Oh, wow.
And, also, Spaceballs, the parody. Mel Brooks' character literally said, merchandising, where the real money for the movie is made.
And that's the thing, like our grant had a time limit. You know, whether we spent it or not, it was gone the next year. And so that's why we wanted to do merch, is because how can we keep this back in our pocket? Our game isn't out yet. It's still in development. We knew we were gonna have a few years still working on it. So we need the money to come back to us, and like why not use the art skills that we have to bring money back directly into the game. The next part of our is
Yeah, so, since half of that money went into merchandising, that meant we could set up a shop, whether that was in person, at the event we were going to, or just sending that online stuff. So what it technically is technically a business center to maintain like a constant stream of revenue during a very, very long game cycle. And it also offsets that convention and development costs that, you know, was inspired by practically what it ends up being is kind of provides a takeaway for players from our booth in our team. And this is a reward avenue for kids to also fund that goes directly. It also advertises the game in a way that like you look at systems, something has to design, you know, that's an another way for something to kind of help me invest in, interested in what we're doing. So like when making art, when making music,
you don't even have to like it.
It's one particular website that yeah, with a lot of indie studios, even Toby Fox kind of had half of his revenue put into merchandising.
Yeah.
I was also.
It was advertised on their, website, even though they don't have the money to create their own website.
Right.
Fan Gamer is kind of like the ultimate problem.
Yeah,
For any game merchandise.
I was about to suggest, having your game, in these streams, but then I forgot that the stream about what the completionist did. Yeah. They pocketed money.
Well, there's like an investigation going on where like he didn't know that like the money from the charity stream hasn't gone anywhere. I don't know how, but like yeah.
It's like with that, with trusting the funding doesn't go anywhere. People are gonna right. And it's like you want the money to be in the hands and
bring a thank you. And for us to
Yeah.
eliminate like the taxes that. And bring, you know, like,
Like in the void that it's in that, like, how it's gonna find our life, everything's going, but if we're in the market. I think. We were on a platform specifically for Michael, doing it, cut it down, but they're rebuilding it and they're gonna bring it back. Here, so it's probably another online shop, plus I think at this point, we're planning to maybe take another shop on our website directly, and so even if it has less traffic, more of the money will go to us, we don't have to give, you know, the percentage of the seller. Right.
and yeah, they're very recently, for like, I think the next one would be willing to agree. That we have. 4 or 5 stores that are selling on either consignment or real product. So yeah, it really does come down like going to work.
And like, how would you, like, this accounting yourself out thing, like, we have a professor who has games and sold at Target, and we were like, oh, like, that's not us, we're not there. But like, what about small businesses, like, how can you have a connection, and you know, people that, like, really love like having a small business in your community, and that, it's like that person-to-person interaction thing can actually make it more bonds with, not these like big corporate things, and it just never occurred to us that like, if we can't do that and we're not ready yet, and we approach other people. Well, there's a video game store in New York City that met us at an event in Pennsylvania. They bought a Swirly Root Crush, and the store owner was like, I'm gonna put this in my shop so everybody knows about the game. And, you know, one day it was like, wait a minute, if you already have a plush in your shop for people to know about the game, would you just sell our stuff? And he was like, yeah, give it to me. And so like, that's how we got into our first brick and mortar store, and that was in December. And like Kristen said, now we're in 4 stores. We're working on 2 more currently, like we have an active ongoing process, we're talking to them. And, if you know Shop Time, it's like a bubble tea shop.
Right here in the Union, I love them.
Yeah.
That's totally.
They're like actual physical stores right around,
Oh.
and they sell our animals.
Oh.
They're gonna actually sell our plushies too.
Oh, have you ever checked out Doodle Hatch?
No, we didn't.
So Doodle Hatch is like this art gallery, but I know that they've also been helping out other artists sell their merch. And I remember somebody was selling like their plushies inside their location. So try them out. Ask what they'll sell your plush over there.
Region.
Region, that's in the mall. That's in the mall.
Yes.
And they'll just be playing.
They're also the guys that come to, right?
Yeah, we were actually working on a region.
Yeah, Doodle Hatch. DOODL. You know, like they spell Doodle and then HAT.
Wait, hold on, we reenact.
Oh, this is guys.
Reenact. Don't kill me. Kill me. They got to turn around, like, I think he likes the game now.
No. Oh.
I mean, aw.
No, you're good.
And then,
Yeah, what was that on that origin shop, versus, we even had to make a game where, here, you know, people with the fact that, like, from us.
It was the wildest thing, when people come into our booth and they were like, I've already bought everything here. So we're gonna put it in the gym, and we're like, and then we also have people who were like, Candy doesn't have enough merch. We want chameleon stuff. You have all this bunny stuff. What about the chameleon people? And we were like, you're right. So Cammy plushie, Cammy nail pins, Cammy stickers. Now,
Oh my God, is that what tiny little? Oh my God, it's adorable.
Sometimes, like, yeah, just like the game, those in your audience, will get them what they want that, like, really builds that, like, yeah, we read that, that's all you end up being, here, and then being able to. And yeah, with both of those, focus very much on quality, so, anything that you buy from us, you know, we will hand check them to make sure they're, like, up to the standard that we would buy, you know, it's already very personal. yeah, we just want to make sure that these are high quality. So people love what they take home and yeah.
You know, we're both very like connected and very like trusting of our manufacturers when we find somebody that we like with a good relationship, but also means that like they tend to have that same experience. Like, buy something, buy something. They like see the quality that we were looking for, and we see that quality in the manufacturer.
We found that, yeah, we've been selling, it does affect cost. And we're in a place right now where we do have store funds as well, so like, if, you know, an unexpected mark, for example, summer, we were getting back from one of our biggest shows and, after laptop fell, and it broke. So instead of, yeah, instead of panicking and like, oh God, how are we gonna pay for this? We actually could use those funds that they stored up. You buy both new laptops and this one that.
Yeah, this is the one that.
This is exactly what happened.
That's 30 bucks.
Yeah.
What model was it? What model was it?
It's an Acer.
Those things are durable. I wanted to get those to like.
It's also a hand-me-down. Like my friend gave it to me, sold me for $200.
Well, that's a good hand.
That was also kind of like a really big personal pride for us too, is that we had made enough sales in merch that we could afford to get gaming, you know, from our merch alone. And so that was also like a really like validating moment. We were like, yeah, we're doing the right thing. Like,
I looked down, because I was like, is there, am I the man? Get here. So like, your card fits perfectly with the label. Like, wait, no, how did this happen?
that would be so cool. That would be
Actually, there is there is an NES maker, like an easy tool that you can make NES.
Wait, what?
It costs like $30.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, we have a friend who does that. They like Apple purchases and.
No, but this software allows you to like make games from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they do. Is like they take indie games and put them away.
I actually modded Super Mario Bros. And replaced it myself. Oh, this is like, and one thing, this is like super dated. I tried to make the bad guy die. So he's a guy that like kills dead neutrality.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like
The racist
You
guy.
guys heard about it?
Oh,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And he's fine.
The whole dead and Charlie thing.
so you go like India.
No. So I guess what's the question for Mert? So with like, how many I guess products you can say is like the minimum of selling to you? If you like practice like one concept and you build it and down up, you like around like you build merch over time.
We build merch over time. I mean, I think that if you're, it depends on the product. If you are showing at your minimum entry for merch would be one thing.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go without your game and just table, you need to fill it, right? And we built it over time, like we said, like when we have people, you know, give us feedback that they want more thing. The person's like doing these illustrations all the time, and we add them, that's what we do. We doubled our animals last year, so now we have 6 instead of 3. We added 9, so now we have 12 in total. With the Kickstarter, Cammy is a new plushie, and so now we have 2. And so it is, yeah, it's definitely something that we can continue to explore.
In terms of the girls, gonna get out of the residence of between 5 and 6. Um, it can just,
And our shop is larger than wide. So we can more line.
Probably just require.
you know that kind of merchandise that the games can be harder to stop people if they go hard in that game. And they can depend to how it's presented. Like for example, our branding for our studio is bubble. So if we have like a bubble, anybody can like that and then pick this up and like
We got a lot of people buy the shirt specifically. They're like, I want bubble.
whereas like, depending on the first note, it's depending on yourself, you don't have to push the page of it. But then when people see it, you're like, oh, but I like
And I think it tends to be too like how functional the item is or how clear it's tied to something. Like with the shirt, people tend to like be like, I'm gonna put that on my body if I like can find it, if I bring. But like with the plushie, people will just go and buy this for it. No incentive for this. With the prints, people will just go and buy those because they like the aesthetic. But depends on like our audience, like what show we're acting.
we found that like it was similar thing with the video where you kind of like with this boy almost. Having the institute options would be better than our online shop on Etsy. But games and like for people it can kind of like narrow their with the like one of
Their online shop has these growing parts. Getting there.
And as far as visuals go, I found that we have depending on the incentive there's always a balancing act between like how much we resonate the public shop and how much we resonate to independent games. But yeah, because the PHS and R&D is always our priority at them, but so we see it very much a balance. Right.
And we always like in our apartment, we always use enough supplies to do a pop-up shop of the video game or of the shop standalone and so like any somebody can call us up tomorrow and be like, I'm doing a thing on Tuesday there. And so it's always like a balancing act too. Like if it's a 10-foot table, we can have a maximum put 2 screens on it or you put 1 screen and a half. If it's a 10-foot by 10-foot square, we can do 2 screens and a full stop. If our biggest show, we either get a 20 by 20 or 20 by 30, and then we can have like 4 screens of the game and like a really like also like a big, and then we'll get like 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like the last part of our experience with like the major funding. And so we ran a Kickstarter last year. And so kind of like the through line of how we got to running a Kickstarter comes from when we did Upstart, we got plushies. We got 150 plushies, pandemic hit, so thick because they took so long. And then the pandemic happened and we sold maybe like 3 online throughout the whole pandemic. So when we were able to sell them in person, we were like super excited about it. And everybody was super excited about it. And then they sold out in a year.
Oh.
And the unfortunate part about that is like when we got halfway down, I was like looking at it and I was like, we need to reorder. But then I realized we were pricing it as to how we determined the price before the pandemic. We didn't take into account how much shipping and manufacturing. And so for a minute we were like, oh my God, we can't afford these plushies. Are we gonna have to let's up them for a while? And then we were like, you know what? We've been saying we want to run a Kickstarter because we want to run a Kickstarter when the game's about to come out because we want to get physical copies. And so, you know what, let's do it now. Let's run all the plushies. We'll figure out all the things that we don't know about it. And like, thank God we did. There's so much about Kickstarter. And every time something new happened, it like recolored everything. And so it was really great that we ran it. And like running a Kickstarter also like really resonates with the indie community. I think like one thing like with the shop is that like that with a lot of other indies. And it should like there's no reason to like look down on the shop because like that helps us stay in the game and helps us make our game and focus on that. But a Kickstarter, I think everybody gets behind it because like a lot of indies aspire to get funding for their game on Kickstarter. And so if you're, is everybody here aware of what Kickstarter is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we already.
Not gonna.
Okay, so,
How many factors do you guys have now?
Hundreds. Yeah. It was really cool. I mean, I found out too that only 30% of Kickstarters make it. And I was like, when it ended, I was like, oh my God, we were in that 30%. It was kind of mind blowing. And another thing that's like reinforced we're doing a good thing. And if you just like try really hard too, then you know, you can make these things happen. And so yeah, so we launched our first Kickstarter ever. We did it to bring back the thriller plushies. And then we decided to also go for it and have Cammy plushies in it as well, because that was one thing somebody told us was like, okay, so if you want to do Cammy plushies anyway, don't make it either or, make it so one can get make the total just get both pluses. And people, and that allows it so people who already own a swirly room can still back, and people who don't have a swirly room can still back, but it's like everybody is at the table now if you make it so it's both for the goal rather than one of the thresholds. So that's what we did.
so I forget, did you really, have you released demos?
Yeah.
Okay, so, online or just physical?
Online.
Okay, all right, so I, like, once again, I would like to recommend page. If from what I remember, it happens every, like, September, like around the fall, so, once again, it's Sonic and.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can also recommend, Denver. It's like a green. You ever heard of this, where is it, that name, but it's called Angel?
Yes, we're on Game Jolt.
Okay.
We're on Game Jolt. We're hoping to do.
Oh, nice.
Cool. So we use this opportunity of, I would say, to learn as much as we could about Kickstarter. That way, when we go and we actually take our game to it, that we like know what we're doing. Because one of the secret rules about Kickstarter is that you're supposed to aim to have your product in hand within 6 months. And so we are not going to be kickstarting our game because it's not going to be in people's hands. And that's actually why like Kickstarter has like a not great relationship with the video game community, because there have been a few indie games that like didn't happen that kind of really messed up for a while.
Like, you know,
And so for a long time, people weren't and it's only in the past year and a half, maybe just 1 year, that people are like really building their strength in indie game Kickstarter. And so yeah, we learned so much. And so we did this again, same strategy that we applied to Upstart. We had literally everybody that we know who run the Kickstarter, everybody we know that who's back at Kickstarter. We went to the career counselor at Minecraft because there used to be a Kickstarter counselor at Minecraft, but now they don't actually have somebody dedicated now. But they actually connected us to people who work at Kickstarter. And so we were able to talk about the person. So we were doing plushies, we went in the toy segment, but they connected us to the toy segment and the video game segment. And we just like we got advice from them and figure out like what is it that we can do to make it up. And so the one thing that I can say about Kickstarter is start early. I would not have recommended this as our approach, but we had to do what we did because we realized we did the math. And in order to have the plushies come in this summer for our convention, we didn't have plushies last summer. And I had somebody yell at us at our booth because we didn't have plushies last summer. Like they were like, "I've been waiting 3 years to buy it, and you're always sold out." And I was like, "I'm sorry." I don't want to get yelled at this year. So we were like, "We need the plushies in this summer." And so we realized if we want to have them, we have to kickstart it now. And so we were like looking in May, and we were like, we need to run this in July. We ended up running it actually in September because we ended up pushing it back a little bit. We talked to like this person who specializes in indie game Kickstarters, and like we were like, okay, it'll be really towing the line. Like the plushies will come in May, and if anything happens, we'll be screwed. But we're hoping, and it's like everything's scheduled. But that was the last possible point that we could do it to have the stuff to make it for our summer. And so we tried to run a Kickstarter with a month of work on it. And then we did talk to them and we pushed back to September. But yeah, so just to give that a picture, we worked on our Kickstarter. We started in end of May, early June. Worked on it so 1 month, July, August, September, launched September 1st. We were still making some Kickstarter. And like what I would say to you too is like you don't want to be making things running your Kickstarter. You want to be just focusing on steering. And so like doing everything that you can. I mean, we posted every 3 hours for the first 3 days. We posted every 3 hours. Like set alarms on my phone and wake up and make a post. And you just like you need to get it out there. Your Kickstarter campaign, the algorithm really plays based on your first 24 hours. So that means is you need to hit it. And so that's what we did. We had people come up to us and they were like, "So how's your Kickstarter going?" We're like, "Yeah, we launched yet." And they're like, "What?" I see it all the time. I thought it launched. They're like, "No, we're getting pre-launched." And that's why it's important. Our Kickstarter was 25% funded now. And how well you do in that first 24 hours, how well Kickstarter will push your campaign on their website. And so we got a product we love tag. We didn't actually get in their newsletter though, because like for as well as like we felt like we did for our first 24 hours, it actually didn't hit their standards to get in the newsletter. And so that's where you like you really need to like, go at the thing because it's difficult. Kickstarter has so many projects running at any given time too that they don't dedicate specific marketing to anyone's project really, unless they can get it. And so I think like if we went back, honestly, I think I would say like that we should like maybe work with like BackerKit or even Indiegogo has like a post campaign thing. Because our post campaign, the number of people who actually backed our campaign after it ended is like so shocking to me. Like people who were just like apparently I guess missed it. I'm not sure. But we've gotten a lot of people, and we don't really want to tell anybody no, so we made it so the rewards are available. But this is where we were like, we should have just gone and taken the plunge and had those campaign. But with it being the first one, we weren't really sure. Like you have to give Kickstarter cut already, and you have to get that cut already. And so we probably would have had to raise our goal at least by $2,000. All the partners activate. And we probably, probably would have hit that because we got almost $2,000 over it, and I think when people see that you're close to the goal, then they speed up and back just to make it happen. And so, yeah, that's like one of the lessons that we learned that maybe that we would do that. The other thing too is we had spoiler prototypes, but we didn't have cannies, so we made all of our marketing via illustration. And Kickstarters are very significantly less likely to be backed if they have illustrations rather than photos. And so that was something that we learned. And so we were funded, which is amazing, especially when you know that. But we might have actually gotten more. We might have hit some of our thresholds. And so we're preparing for that right now. We're preparing for our next Kickstarter right now. Actually, one of the our fourth stretch goal was like super popular on social media, and so we're going to start for that. It's a hooded blanket in the shape of curly root with paws and ears. And we're getting a prototype now, so we can do like a full fashion shoot and everything, and make sure people know exactly like what it looks like from all angles. But yeah, it's start your marketing early, be as direct as possible, and like again, if you get tired of your Kickstarter, you're the person that counts yourself out first, right? Right. Everyone's Kickstarter is slow in the middle. Everyone's best period is first 24 hours, second best last 24 hours, and then there's the part called and that's when like most people's Kickstarters just stall out and don't really get backers. And so one of the things that we did, our alma mater was actually like, "You guys want to throw a party about your Kickstarter?" And so they actually hosted a space for us and helped us advertise for a party about our Kickstarter. We had like 100 guests, and we had somebody drive for like over 5 hours. We met us at a convention just to come to the party. And so it like to revive and make excitement about the day because it's like you're trying your best to try to keep it up. And while it will slow because of like how the algorithm and how the process is, like everything that you can do can get you closer to your goal. So like don't stop pushing it out. And if you think too like, oh, I've already posted about it, nobody wants to see it. Well, people who are following you in the long haul, they are probably people that are backing you and they do want to see it. And if they've already backed it, they're not gonna get annoyed by it. And then you're also like, making sure you're hitting the people that like haven't seen it. Sometimes people just aren't on social media every day. Sometimes people aren't on that platform specifically, and like, if you tell people what you're doing and tell people why you're important to you, the number one reason why somebody close to you won't back your Kickstarter campaign is not actually about the money, it's that they don't understand what Kickstarter is, and they don't understand what it looks to you. And so like, of course, your family and friends are not there to give you money, like that's not why they're in your life. So like, don't treat them like that. But like, if they do have the ability to back you, then that's awesome. And if they don't, they can share. And so, just being upfront and open and being like, this could really affect my life in these ways. If I can get it, it makes a lot of people be like, I want to get on board with that. That's really important to me to see what you can do. And so, yeah, make all your usable content upfront. Make as much, things as possible. Another thing we would do too is have more, more things like this video sort of squirrely route out in the world, because that tends to do better on social media than more like than posts of like the actual like gears and stuff, like with physical items. And if you think you're running a Kickstarter, double the amount of time that you plan for it, and then after you double that, triple that, because that's the amount of time you're going to need to run Kickstarter. And so, of course, your Kickstarter 2 is also going to do better if you already have your own flight. And so that's one thing that apparently is really common, is that people who are like super backers of Kickstarters, they back all the time. And people who back Kickstarters are more likely to back other Kickstarters. The number one backer on Kickstarter has already backed it. They know to check your website, see if you're legitimate. And so while it's not true that just because you don't have a website doesn't mean you're not legitimate, it is a thing that people like. And so like, you want to make sure, that was part of our crunch, is that I literally designed our website when we went Upstart. And like in 2019, I threw out the design for it. And then we just worked on our game instead and never got the website. So when we wanted to run the Kickstarter and we found this out, we were like, oh, we have to make the website now. And so, yeah, that's kind of like a brief overview of Kickstarter. Yeah, it is really fun, and it is a great way to, it's also really simple, but it is a great way to have power in your own hands about how you can produce things and how you can publish things. Because like through platforms like this, yes, it is all or nothing, but if we can meet those standards, the money that we're gonna get for the backing and plus covers the whole order of the initial fund. Everyone who's in our Kickstarter is also going to get their funds that they backed for. And then we're also gonna have about 400 of these left over that we're going to go on and sell, and that's going to bring more money back to our game, and that's really empowering the small studio to be able to like, yeah, we know we're going to be in a safe place.
Starting with this exciting launch, first thing you want to do is, about leaving for your business plan and contract as to make your business better.
Honestly, the reason it's back here is because we need funding to get lawyers. Lawyers are
Right.
great.
Yeah, so like looking at you is not just about like who you're working with, but also your product. In your work from copyright and other sources, and from you put a lot of work into your business, so like why not work? But this early is cool. The earlier you can talk about difficult decisions, especially the better. Hard decisions is a lot less hard and a lot more when they're made early on, because they feel less and not as responsible. So an average of early on average of business is out of the regulation 5 and 10 years. And so a lot can happen in that time. You need to talk over every possible scenario. There's a plan for like it. And that can be like even like what do you do when your company is out of the regulation? What do you do when your company needs $100,000 for that? But that can also look like, what happens to the founding member, walk the volunteer with the park, right? We're team of 4 and something go down to team of 3. What does that then look like? Like what happens if somebody wants to be involved, but they're not following through on their agreement? Like what are the all of these scenarios can take a lot of headache and heartache if So yeah, making sure everybody signs, that can be an important step, kind of make sure that you're all aware that you're agreeing, thing that is real, it's gonna do work, and that, a lot of hard work, and, yeah, just making sure that everybody really understands. So at the same time that it's really much of a yeah, there are a lot of options with how a business going to be and how kind of your setup will look like. That's what, and it can reflect the city as it is, and it should,
And it should grow with.
it should grow with it too, right? So like, ways that you can contribute to a business, there are two major ways, and that is investing money or investing capital. And so when, you're deciding like, you're looking for, how does that equity in the company, like your stake in the company, how does that look? How does that look? Does that reflect, how much work and money work in, and how do you divide? All of that will kind of go into like your business plan and how your company is set up.
The one thing that nobody tells you too is that like you evaluate like what those things need to do, because your equity is literally the value of your own. And so like say that like we have a shop now, right? And so our Boba Studio is bringing in money. We might not need money for our shop. And so like maybe founders who are only contributing money now have less equity because that matters less. Could our business survive without the money that they're providing? Yes. Then maybe that's worth less than the amount of effort that somebody puts in, because like that's really like what's going to get our game out there is all of this incredible amounts of work that make a video game. And so you can decide too, like are work and money worth the same amount to you? Is money worth more? Because maybe in your business you don't have the skills to do it, and you're like some like big tech guy, and you're just gonna hire somebody to do the thing. Maybe money matters more. But like for us, we have the skills, and now we have a revenue stream. We can start a shop, and so maybe money does. And that's your. All right. And so all of this to say is that like when you're able to do all of the things that like we've mentioned, what we get out of that is that we can build a better game. And so this is the export of the cutscene when we originally had it for the project. And this is what it looks like today. And so. All right. Do we have any questions?
Is this gonna be exclusively PC? Or,
So currently the demo is available only for the PC, specifically because Wyatt hated Mac, and so we had to drop Mac. But but what we really are going for is. And I would have to say
It would work for it.
which is like.
I bought it. You can go on the black one thing. That was more gray color, right?
Space Gray, yeah.
Well, I got newer one.
Hey, you have Space Gray. Tell me about it.
User engine. A lot of like the big AAA studios build their own engines, and so if you're working like in, for like I do something, but there'd be somebody who's like an expert in that. For us, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do Unity. Unity is plug and play for every engine. That's why it's named Unity. And so, what that effectively looks like is it is already prepared to export to Nintendo Switch. We do need to get a developer kit to actually like test it and to put in like the final parts, because the way that the graphics work, because you can actually like make a real export without them. And so we will need to contact Nintendo and pay the fee. Nintendo has historically been the toughest one to get a dev kit out of. But they've become a lot more indie friendly with Switch. They have like their entire
They had their,
section.
they had their own indie world.
Oh,
They had their indie world direct.
Just wait,
Yeah.
be thankful you're not trying to like license them back in the '80s, because their like licensing agreement was tough.
Oh, yeah, the eighties with them, they were tough to get through.
They licensed a few things that they like rented. And then they like
Yeah.
went in the complete opposite direction. Like they were like, that was horrible. Let's make sure it never happens. And so, yeah, effectively the process is that we would apply to Nintendo, we send them the bill of our game, they approve it or not.
Right.
If they approve it, they'll send us the dev kit, then we have to work on integrating the dev kit into our game. We'll have like effectively like a good one. And then we'll be able to export it from there, and Unity will do that work to make it. But if you're working with like Unreal, which isn't like set up to automatically do that, you'll have to put in like a little bit more code. To make it right.
Not that powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a question about, I guess, getting the legal firm for creating studios. So I guess with, starting funding, did you look at any grant options for, I guess, getting the legal trademarks and the foundation for starting in studios?
Yeah.
I mean, like at the grant starting, like at the college graduate level.
We actually did, we applied to a lot of different residencies. I mean, even in 2017, 2018, there were less student funds than there are now. And so now we're pretty confident with what we have. And I think we more would want to apply to somebody for something if we think it could take us somewhere rather than like just trying to get the monetary investment. Even though that would always help. I mean, the less we have to worry about other things, the more we can work on our game. And I'm gonna be so real, what we need is a really big car. Because our biggest show, it happens in DC, we'll drive like 3 times back for small business.
Is the, the big show that you're talking about, is it at the cost?
Yeah.
I'm going there this August.
Yeah, come find us. We'll be in the gaming hall upstairs. And so for copyright and trademarks specifically, we're doing that right now. There is a creative fund, and you would have to email me because I can't remember it off the top of my head, that is available for sole proprietorships only, so we don't actually, it's sole proprietorship and creators themselves. And so I had applied to that, but because we're a partnership, I didn't realize it was sole proprietorships only. Because we're a partnership, we were not eligible. But what we are eligible for is the MDVLA, the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. They have a fund, right, and things like that, and you can use it. Any artist can use it once. And so now we're trying to decide, do we want to pay the copywriting fee now, or do we want to pay it when it's done? So what's complicated about copywriting is copywriting captures the existing iteration of your thing in that post. And so if we copyright for earlier today and then continue to work on it, the rest of it that will work. The reason that we have to copyright it now, actually, the lawyers recommended it to us was for selling. And so they want us to go ahead and capture the existing IP and then re-copyright it when it's done. Which does mean like we'd be paying the profit twice, but it will protect both. Does that answer your question?
Because I thought, with copywriting, I guess, copywriting and trademarking your, I thought it's one time. But then again, I guess if you have, more material to over in the game.
Right, I think
Later on.
trademarking you only do one, but like, have you ever noticed when you buy a game,
Yep.
it'll be like Pokemon, and then it'll have like the C for copyright, and then the year, and it'll be that year.
Yeah.
It's because they've redone their copyright.